Avatar: The Last Airbender pre-release is here, and I could not be more excited. Attending a pre-release of any Magic set at your local game store is absolutely worth it, but this set is a home run. I really think it is one of the best sets of the year. So if it is possible, go down to your local game store or just pick up a couple pre-release packs to take home and play with a friend, because I strongly believe you will have a great time playing this new set. And whether you are an established player, someone returning after a long hiatus, or someone brand new to this game, or maybe just a fan of the show, pre-release is the event for you. It's the event for everyone. While pre-release kits typically contain 6 sealed booster packs of the newest set as well as 1 promo card, Avatar: The Last Airbender has a twist. At Avatar pre-release, you will choose one of 5 different pre-release kits, each themed to one of the 4 members of Team Avatar, as well as a 5th possible kit themed after Azula. Inside your kit, as opposed to the normal 6 sealed booster packs, you will instead find 5 sealed booster packs and 1 sealed seeded theme pack that corresponds to the character featured on the art of your pre-release kit. This booster will contain a random foil promo card, as well as the uncommon monocolor version of your selected character. In addition to that, the seeded boosters will contain a plethora of other cards that are all aligned to the colors of your pre-release kit. Using this kit, and as many basic lands from your LGS's basic land station as you'd like, you'll build a deck of 40 cards to battle against other players who also built decks out of their pre-release kits. If you have never attended a pre-release event, or if it's been a while since your last one, be sure to check out our video explaining how to build a sealed deck, which will lay out everything you need to know about this fun and highly accessible format. This video will assume you already know the basics of how to build a sealed deck, and instead will focus on how to build the best sealed deck that you can out of your Avatar pre-release pool. I'll cover everything from the set's mechanics, to its archetypes, to its key cards that you should keep an eye out for as you crack your packs. We've got a lot of information to cover today, so let's get started. But first, what's going on? Smart Prof status report. We have extremely low price readings popping up in 29. No, wait, scratch that. 30 locations, dumb prof. A new source just appeared. Could it be? It is! It's the micro opening! It's finally happening! May micro God help us all. What do we do, dumb prof? Also, why are you in charge if you're stupider than me? Smart Prof! Find me a direct route to the nearest Micro Center. I have to go to Micro Center for the great deals on computer products and Magic the Gathering impulse buys. I have to go to the new Micro Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Are you saying that you, the professor, will be at Micro Center's new Phoenix, Arizona location this Saturday the 15th to meet fans, sign cards, and take pictures? Yes. And this is a real thing that is actually happening? You, the professor, at Micro Center? Yes. Oh! Come to Micro Center's new Phoenix, Arizona location when the store opens at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and join me, the professor, at a meet and greet. When you're done, go see all the incredible prices, awesome inventory, and friendly staff that I've been advertising for the last 3 months.
And I'll be there too.
Who are you?
I am a customer shopping at Micro Center. Please do not bother me.
What?
Ah!
You won't want to miss this Micro Center extravaganza. Again, that's this Saturday, November 15th at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time at Micro Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Come meet the professor, that's me, at Micro Center. I'm at Micro Center. I'm the professor at Micro Center. And be sure to tell me that I sent you. I won't know what you're talking about. There is a lot of information to parse when building a sealed deck from your pre-release kit, so I always recommend organizing your cards as you go. You can do this however you'd like, but personally I like to separate my cards out by color and then further separate the commons from the uncommons, rares, and mythics. Within these columns, I also like to organize by mana value so that I can better see the mana curve of each respective pool. Once you have all 6 packs grouped up like this, you can start to get a feel for what cards and colors you might be interested in playing. playing. Looking at this pool, what is your first idea of what to build with it? I've actually linked the entire pool in this video's description, and I'll show you what I've built at the end of the video. But first, let's cover some of the key new mechanics in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Understanding these mechanics and how strong they are in sealed events like Prerelease will help you evaluate the power level of your cards and decide which ones will end up being in your 40-card deck. Before we talk about anything at all with Avatar Limited, we have to discuss bending, as bending is as important to Avatar Limited as it is to the Avatar show. Now, that's because the designers of Avatar Magic have depicted the 4 types of bending mechanically. Each form of bending is incredibly distinct from the other 3, and therefore useful in different ways. All 4 abilities are powerful, though, and must be understood in order to maximize them when building a pre-release deck. Firebending exists exclusively on red and black cards, though there are a few multicolor firebending legends that touch one of the other colors as well. Creatures with firebending add an amount of red mana when they attack, equal to the number listed next to their firebending ability word. The red mana lasts until the end of combat. Firebending is great for casting combat tricks and other mid-combat instants. It's also very useful for activating abilities that just require a mana input. Keep an eye out for these activated abilities and other instant speed mana sinks when building a deck with lots of firebending. You can hold up the firebending mana throughout combat, threatening a combat trick. Then, if you didn't need to cast anything to win combat, cast some other red instant in the end of combat phase, after damage has been dealt. Fire Nation Attacks is one of the best uses of firebending mana in the set. Waterbending is a fusion of the existing mechanics Convoke and Improvise. To waterbend, pay the generic mana cost listed on a card's waterbending ability, reduced by the number of creatures and artifacts you tap while paying. Waterbending is most prevalent on blue cards, but there are a few white, black, and green monocolor cards at low rarities that are also capable of waterbending. Many waterbending payoffs are incredibly strong to make up for the sheer number of resources that they require. The more you can generate tokens, be they artifact or creature tokens, the easier it will be to waterbend. Clue tokens are very prominent in the set. Remember that you don't need to tap clues to sacrifice them, meaning you can tap them to pay for your waterbending abilities before sacrificing them to draw cards. Earthbending is a form of land animation. To earthbend, put a number of +1/+1 counters on a land you control. It becomes a 0/0 creature until it's removed from play, though it's still a land too. Unlike many land animation effects throughout Magic's history, there's a built-in failsafe with earthbending that dramatically improves the strength of this mechanic. If an earthbended land is destroyed or exiled, it returns to the battlefield tapped as a non-creature. Usually, you'll want to earthbend whichever land you're least likely to want to tap for mana. You can also earthbend onto one of the dual lands in the set that sacrifices to draw a card. When you do, the land will return to play afterward, giving you a free card for no downside. Earthbending is a green mechanic first and foremost, but there are some earthbenders that use black mana as well. To an even lesser extent, there are a few earthbending cards that use red and white mana. In contrast, airbending exists pretty much exclusively on white cards. You airbend by exiling a non-land card. It may be recast for 2 generic mana rather than its mana cost. There aren't many airbenders in Avatar: The Last Airbender Limited. To understand why that is, roll the name of the show and the set over your tongue a few times. Airbending is useful both on attack and defense. You'll airbend your own stuff to either protect it from removal or to re-trigger enters the battlefield effects. You can also use it to temporarily clear away an opponent's permanent to get in an attack or delay their development. Be careful when doing this though, as any permanent with an enter the battlefield trigger will re-trigger that ability when they re-enter play. So what kind of deck can you build at your pre-release? Well, usually when explaining a limited environment, I talk about each color pair and how a deck in that color pair should look. But Avatar Limited is a different beast. If you will permit me just a moment to put on my game designer hat, I want to explain why this is before I talk about what it means. Because this is what's known as a top-down set, many of the aspects of Magic Limited design fundamentals had to be thrown out or modified to best represent the existing world and story of Avatar. If the designers of the set had to take a slightly different approach to building out a limited environment, then we need to take a slightly different approach to learning it. Magic is, at its core, a factional game, where each color and each color combination has a distinct and pre-established identity. This gives set designers a system by which to design a fun and coherent limited environment each time they make a new set. But Avatar is also an inherently factional story, thanks to the 4 elemental nations. The Avatar factions fit reasonably well into the Magic factions, but there's a small issue with it that had a noticeable impact on the format. Namely, if you pair firebending with red, waterbending with blue, airbending with white, and earthbending with green, that leaves the magic color black left out. You can't just assign elements to magic colors one-to-one. One of the ways the set designers have addressed this is by giving black to the Fire Nation. This was a brilliant move in a way that won't be appreciated by many Magic the Gathering players. That's because long ago the 4 nations lived in harmony, but everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. The Fire Nation has upset the balance of the Avatar world, and so it has access to a greater percentage of the color wheel than the other nations. So all of that is to say that I'm not going to talk about color pairs to the same extent in Avatar Limited as I do with most sets. Each color pair does still have an identity in the format, but many of those identities are more like secondary bonuses rather than something you want to carefully construct a whole deck around. Many of those bonuses can even be applied to other color combinations beyond just the pair that they're supposed to be for. Archetypes. Now, the category of archetype where your colors matter itself breaks down into 2 additional subcategories: color pairs and monocolor. I'll talk about each of these more briefly than I do in most pre-release guides. The blue-white color pair has some synergies with the flying keyword, but don't get tunnel visioned on that aspect. There's not enough there to build a whole deck around the mechanic. The pair has access to both air and water bending, so cards that generate tokens and have strong enter the battlefield effects are at a premium. The blue-black color pair has draw 2 synergies, meaning cards that get better once you've drawn a second card in a turn. Clue tokens are great for doing this at will. This is a slow and grindy deck, so make sure you pick enough interaction to let you live long enough to capitalize on the inevitability of your card advantage. The red-black deck is a fire-bending aggro deck. This is another great home for clue tokens, since cracking a clue is a great use of fire-bending mana. And there's tons of red removal in this set, many of which is great for clearing away blockers mid-combat. The red-green deck is an earthbend-heavy ramp deck. Your specific creature benchmark is 4 power, as you have many cards that are about the power level of your creatures. Remember that you can stack multiple instances of earthbending onto a single creature to get it above that 4 power threshold. It's important to remember that I'm spending a lot less time on these archetypes because they aren't even really archetypes. They're just synergies that exist in those color pairs, but can often be applied to other color pairs as well. Blue-green is a lesson ramp deck. This deck wants to accelerate its mana using the many powerful ramp lessons, then cast powerful and expensive lesson payoff cards ahead of schedule. This deck will almost always want to splash at least red for its lesson-based removal, and maybe bombs in other colors as well. A deck whose base is green-blue is much more likely to splash red than a deck whose base is red-blue is likely to splash green. Blue-red is a leaner, more up-tempo lessons deck. The more lessons you can cast, the better. Most of the blue-green and red-green hybrid cards are great in this deck. You can run them even if you don't have any forests in the deck. White-black is supposed to be a sacrifice deck, though white isn't offering the pair very much on that axis. As with most sack decks in Limited, small creatures with useful enter the battlefield and death triggers are the best fodder for your sack outlets. Sacrificing clue tokens also triggers many of your sack payoffs. The black-green deck cares about +1/+1 counters on your creatures. The most readily available way to achieve this is through earthbending, but there are also a number of other means of getting counters on your stuff. The deck borrows a lot of sacrifice synergy from the white-black deck, and in fact, most decks may be better as Abzan decks than straightforward black-white or black-green decks. Red-white is a go-wide token deck. There are lots of payoffs for having a wide board in this color pair. These can be cards that care about the number of creatures in play, and cards that pump your whole team, which get better the larger the team you have to pump. White-green is an ally aggro deck that generates a lot of tokens and makes them bigger through anthems and +1/+1 counters. This color pair has tons of cross-archetype synergy with the sack outlets of white-black, the token generators of white-red, and the counters synergy with green-black. This may mean you want to splash additional colors beyond just white and green in your deck, especially if you open the Rare's Great Divide Guide or Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop. What about hybrid cards? Hybrid cards in Avatar Limited are doing what hybrid cards always do best in Limited: bridge the gap between multiple archetypes. The hybrid cards in Avatar Limited are extremely pushed, often better than monocolor versions of similar effects in the same set. As such, you should feel encouraged to play hybrid cards from an adjacent color pair in your deck. For example, go ahead and run Platypus Bear in your Is It Lessons deck, or Messenger Hawk in your Azurius Flyers deck. To go along with the de-emphasis of color pairs in Avatar Limited, the set designers have increased emphasis on monocolor decks in the format relative to most Limited environments. You will rarely build a monocolor deck in most other formats, but the same is not true with Avatar. Every color in Avatar Limited has a busted payoff card at uncommon for building a monocolor deck. This, in addition to the strength of the highly flexible hybrid cards, which can go in monocolor decks of either of their hybrid colors, means that you absolutely can and should try your hand at a monocolor deck at your pre-release if you'd like to. Gather the White Lotus is a 5-mana sorcery that creates a 1/1 white ally creature token for each planes you control, and then you get to scry 2. If you're mono white, it's easy for this to generate a massive board of creatures, which can then easily be pumped by the many sources of stat boosts in white. Waterbending Scroll is an exceptionally powerful card draw engine in Limited if you're able to reduce its mana cost down to 2 or less. In other words, if you have 4 or more islands in play. At 2 mana, it's easy to run this out early and then start activating it for card advantage once you've gotten a little further into the game. The black monocolor uncommon is Cat Gator, a 7-mana 3/2 fish crocodile with lifelink. That's a terrible rate for a 3/2 lifelinker, but this crocodile fish makes up for its hefty cost with a staggering ETB effect. When it enters, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of swamps you control. And because Cat Gator has lifelink, you'll also gain that much life. In other words, if you cast this with 7 swamps in play, you'll deal 7 damage anywhere and gain a ridiculous 7 life back. Solstice Revelations has a high upside if you have enough mountains in play to cast whenever you hit off of it, but it's also inherently high variance. Still, being an instant means you can surpass your opponent with a mid-combat or end-of-turn creature or other threatening card. Flashback also means Solstice Revelations has a natural source of card advantage. Rockalanche is another monocolor payoff that happens to be a flashback lesson. This one is a bit more reliable though, and can easily give you a massive creature twice, one for very little mana investment relative to the creature's size. Color agnostic archetypes. There are 3 archetypes in Avatar that care a lot less about the specific colors of your deck than they do about the quantity of a certain card subtype. I touched on 2 of these in the color archetype section, but I want to go into more detail on all 3 here. Allies. Allies are the second most important creature type in Avatar after human. Despite the archetype's primary support coming in white and green colors, there are powerful allies in every color. What's more, at high rarities, there exists both support and payoffs for splashing additional colors. After white and green, your next most prominent color will probably be blue, then red. You'll probably only want to play black if you open a Boiling Rock Rioter or Fire Lord Zuko. Boiling Rock Rioter in particular is an excellent card in the ally deck if you're able to cast it. Lessons. The next broader archetype I'll discuss is the Lessons archetype. Lessons is a subtype of instant and sorcery that was first introduced in the in-universe magic set Strixhaven. Back then, Lessons functioned as wish targets that could be grabbed from your sideboard anytime you resolved a card with the Learn mechanic. In Avatar, there are no Learn cards, only Lesson cards. It's funny that this means, from a flavor perspective, the characters in Avatar are only ever being taught lessons, but are never learning anything. I mean, that's true for Sokka anyway, but that's another video. But as for what this means about Avatar Limited, you should plan on running lessons in your main deck. Fortunately, the lesson cards in Avatar are significantly stronger than those in Strixhaven. The power level difference really is night and day. I mean, you've got a literal reprint of Rampant Growth named Shared Roots that just has the lesson subtype strapped to it. Compare that to, say, Introduction to Prophecy from Strixhaven, which was a 3-mana colorless version of Preordain, a card that costs just 1 blue mana. When building a lessons deck, you should feel empowered to include as many lessons as you can with your colors. There are several interactive spells, card advantage spells, and ramp spells that have been given the lessons subtype. There are also several fantastic payoffs for lessons at low rarities in the set. These include threats like Dragonfly Swarm and Boomy, King of the Three Trials, as well as lessons themselves that get stronger when summoned by their kin, like Accumulate Wisdom and Combustion Technique. The lesson archetype is primarily a teamer deck, but there are both lessons and lesson payoffs in white and black as well. In addition to the color-fixing ramp lessons, the blue-green uncommon Hermitic Herbalist helps a lot by fixing your mana to cast lessons, as does the uncommon land White Lotus Hideout. I expect lessons to be one of the strongest things to do in Avatar Limited right out of the gate. Shrines. On the other hand, shrines may be one of the weaker things to do in this format. This is clearly a 5-color deck, and there is mana fixing aplenty to enable the archetype. The problem is the cards themselves have an internal tension that undermines their own playability. These are cards that would be strong if you could amass them in large quantities, but because they are legendary, you don't really get to do that. It's impossible to have more than 5 shrines in play, and getting to that point requires you to spend 16 total mana. What's more, because you're limited to the cards you open in your pre-release pool, it's hard to have any agency over how many of each shrine you can include in your deck. As a result, I do not recommend building shrines with your pool unless you manage to open at least 4 or 5 of them, and ideally all 5. If you do find yourself with enough shrines in your pool to build this archetype, remember that you can play redundant copies of your shrines out into the legend rule to trigger their ETB effects. When you do this, you'll trigger both copies of the same shrine even though you have to sack one of them to the legend rule before either ability goes on the stack. In other words, if you have 4 shrines in play, including a Northern Air Temple, and you play out another Northern Air Temple, not only will you get the Drain 4 effect of the incoming shrine, you'll also get the 1 life drain from the Northern Air Temple already in play. Bombs to watch out for. There are a lot of factors that go into a good sealed deck, but the strength of a pre-release deck can be measured first and foremost by the strength of its bombs. Identifying the best cards in your pool will tell you what kind of deck you should build. Many great limited cards are what are known as build-arounds, meaning they get stronger the more the rest of your deck plays into a particular game's state. As a rule, you should build your pre-release deck around the strongest cards in your pool, if at all possible. There are a ton of great bombs in white, though many of them lead you down different paths from their fellow white high rarity cards. United Front is one of the strongest overall cards in the set, as it not only generates a wide board of creatures that scales to the length of the game, but it also makes your whole board even stronger. I'm also a huge fan of Avatar's Wrath, which at 4 mana is the kind of card that is capable of totally swinging a close game in your favor. Wan Shitong, Librarian, is perhaps the strongest creature in Avatar Limited. Not only is it a massive flying threat, but it has vigilance so it can block and flash, which makes it so it can be deployed at your convenience. And of course, it draws you a bunch of cards when it enters. So anytime your opponent casts a ramp spell, cycles a land cycler, or otherwise tutors for anything, you'll draw an additional card on top of whatever else you drew when you cast it. Waterbender Ascension is a slow build, but once it gets up to 4 quest counters, it's a fantastic card advantage engine that also threatens to end the game quickly with its waterbend ability. Black has 8 incredible rares and mythics, all except my Scornful Striker and Foggy Swamp Visions, neither of which are even terrible. But the best black rares are among the best cards in the entire set. Ko, the Face Stealer, is a fantastic removal spell on a stick. Rise of Sozin is a slightly pricey wrath that can then snipe whatever the best card left in your opponent's deck is, and then turns into a threat that can end the game in a single swing if unanswered. Day of the Black Sun is a flexible sweeper that gets around indestructible and any pesky death triggers your opponent's creatures may have. Red has more high rarity duds than the other colors, in part because most of the mythics are better suited to other formats, but there are still a few great cards among the bunch. The best rare in red is probably Ren and Shaw, one of the best payoffs for lesson decks in Avatar Limited. Even just a single copy of Ren and Shaw in play is a highly threatening aerial attacker, but getting 2 copies for just 5 mana is ridiculous. Wartime Protesters is also a fantastic card in white-red specifically. You probably run this in every red deck, mind you. It's just at its best in white-red. Green has a lot of solid rares, though most are not quite as impressive as the bombs in white, blue, or black. My favorite green rare is Earthbender Ascension, which is effectively a rampant growth on a stick that then sticks around to pump up your team whenever lands enter play in the mid to late game. Earthen Ally is an awesome card in Allies decks, and highly encourages you to have a way to access all 5 colors of mana for that phenomenal activated ability. Let's take a look at the deck I built from my pre-release kit, which if you'll recall from the start of this video, I chose Zuko, providing me with plenty of red cards to build around. Notably, I had a copy of Lightning Strike, 1 copy of Firebending Lesson, and a copy of Iroh's Demonstration, as well as 2 copies of the uncommon Zuko Exiled Prince. This gave me a strong base of efficient removal and a way to accrue card advantage, as well as cash in on some extra firebending mana during my combat phase. Additionally, finding 2 copies of Jet's Brainwashing helps my attackers land early damage, and later in the game take control of key creature cards from my opponent by paying the kicker cost once I have the mana to do so. After that, to round out my strategy, I included an ally tokens theme to fill the board with bodies, utilizing cards like United Front, and also adding in Treetop Freedom Fighters and Jet Freedom Fighter to maintain advantage. Lastly, I focused on cheap, efficient threats to round out my aggressive game plan, with creatures that scale well later into the game, and some protection pieces to make sure they stick around. I've linked this deck in the video's description, but I've also linked the complete card pool there as well. So you can take a look at everything I opened in my pre-release kit and practice by trying to build your own deck from the cards I opened. Let me know what you build in the comments below. And there you have it, everything you need to know to succeed at your Avatar pre-release event. Now, if you'd like to see us do our own in-house Avatar pre-release, you can check out the latest episode of Shuffle Up and Play, where we open up 6 packs of Avatar and build sealed decks to play against one another. That video is available by clicking on the eye or linked in this video's description. I hope very much this video has been of some help to you, and remember, I do highly recommend going down to your local game store this weekend and playing in one of the best casual events that Magic the Gathering has to offer, the pre-release event. It is, and has always been, worth it to play.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
What's up? It's Shuffle Up and Play, and today we have balanced our decks against a medium deck.
Mid? Do they call it? I think the kids call it mid.
But okay, off.
Your deck was bonkers crazy powerful.
They replaced a couple cards.
And how many was that?
20? 20! I have a really easy turn 1, a Gloom Lake Verge.
Draw for turn.
And then I'm gonna draw for turn.
This is what I assume your lives are usually like. As influencers.
You're an influencer.
You're an influencer.
I want to tell you this. That's what you do.
Death Cap Glade.
That a no cap? What's the? It's cap. Yeah, cap. Cap.
I want to attack, but I don't think anybody's naked. You got a 4/4 froggy.
Can't be naked.
What? Is this a common vibe?
Sometimes I say things that I don't know.